Hey, Freight Pod listeners. Before we get started today, let's do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Rapido Solutions Group. Rapido connects logistics and supply chain organizations in North America with the best nearshore talent to scale efficiently and deliver superior customer service. Rapido works with businesses from all sides of the logistics industry. This includes brokers, carriers, and logistics software companies. Rapido builds out teams with roles across customer and carrier sales and support, back office administration, and technology services. The team at Rapido knows logistics and people. It's what sets them apart. Rapido is driven by an inside knowledge of how to recruit, hire, and train within the industry, and a passion to build better solutions for success. The team is led by CEO Danny Frisco and COO Roberto Acaza, two guys I've worked with from my earliest days in the industry at Coyote. I have a long history with them and I trust them. I've even been a customer of theirs at Molo, and let me tell you, they made our business better. In the current market where everyone's trying to do more with less and save money, solutions like Rapido are a great place to start. To learn more, check them out at gorapido.com. That's gorapido.com.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to another episode of Freight Pod. I'm your host, Andrew Silver. I am joined today by Mr. Matt O'Mara, the CEO and founder of Whimsy Intermodal, Whimsy Trucking. This is our first foray into the intermodal world, and it's no time like the present with the current tariff chaos going on and all the impact that will have in imports and the intermodal business, and we will get there, but I want to go through your whole story. I know you started as a truck driver and started your own business and have grown it into this very successful company. So there's a lot for us, I think, to learn, even in just the 10 minutes I spent. And this is the first time we've ever met or spoken. But in the 10 minutes we just spent chatting before the episode started, I wish I'd been recording the whole time. So I think there's going to be a lot of good nuggets today. Welcome to the show, Matt. How you doing?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So take me all the way back. How'd you get into this business?
All right. I was a mover, I guess, and in the moving business, we were busy May through October. And then October through May, we would do industrial moves, office moves, things like that, because not many households were moving, whatever. I had to get into some other business that was more consistent. There was too many ups and downs. Now we call that white glove delivery.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah. But I mean, I've done industrial rigging, all those things that go with that. Office moves, and then, as I said, I had to get into something more consistent. And I got into hauling containers as an owner operator. And at the same time, I would tell the dispatchers, give me all the dispatch nobody wants, right? And so I've always been successful at turning lemons into lemonade. So became an owner operator. A company that I was working at got bought out. The company that bought them didn't want any company drivers, so I took over 10 of these trucks and 10 of their best drivers, and that's how I expanded for multiple trucks. We did garbage too. We hauled waste transfers, so we'd go to transfer stations with our open top walking floors and pick up garbage and take it to the landfills and pump it off into the landfill yards. Reason being is garbage, mail, fuel, these things move every day, right? Containers usually. So I just need to get into a more consistent business. Turned out I was pretty natural at leading drivers, and probably one of the reasons my father was a labor relations guy for Illinois Bell for many, many years. So I knew it was like have to, be boots on the ground, talking to the people that really are accomplishing the work. And so people just started falling in and working with me. The team grew, right? Just organically.
How old were you when you took over the 10 trucks and drivers?
So it was like 27. Yeah.
That's young to be kind of making that big of a commitment. Why did you feel like that was the time and you were ready?
Fearless or stupid.
Fearless and stupid, or fearless or stupid? Both.
Yeah.
I started my company at 27 and I was fearless and stupid.
Yeah.
So you might have been an or.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to be, I had nothing to lose.
And when was this? 96?
Yeah. 1995, 94, 93. Actually, Whimsy was incorporated in 96. So, there was a lot of work that we did before Whimsy actually was an incorporated carrier. So,
And why containers? Why intermodal?
I have no idea. Yeah,
Just was what was in front
faith,
of you?
I guess. I believe. I truly believe that you can't press things, and you have to let take advantage of the opportunities that come to you. So I guess at the time, that was probably my best opportunities.
And just for context for the audience, because we're going to walk through the whole story, but what does the business look like today in terms of like its size and what you guys focus on, intermodal versus over the road and
So
such?
one of the most difficult things that actually is when you're a legacy company, been around a while, right? And you're in a more advanced world. Biggest thing for us was digitizing, going paperless. I want to say 12 years ago, we signed a contract with the TMS system, and we tried to implement it. I didn't have the right team or team members to help me implement it, so that we had to cancel that. 8 years later, we started with Trinium, and same thing. I got a lot of resistance from everybody on the team. Failed again. And then the last time we got Trinium, I hired a whole nother team that didn't even know intermodal. So I had to teach them intermodal. They were all just techie, data analysts, all these type. Teach them all intermodal while the other guys are dispatching. And then my idea was just to merge the teams. But there was a lot of conflict to end up losing the original dispatch team, moving these guys into dispatch, and then hiring a whole nother set of guys to retrain. And so finally it was, I don't know, June of last year that we finally went paperless, embraced the whole TMS system. And yeah, so those things are very difficult to overcome when you don't just start out as a tech company. Or what we're really good at, though, obviously, because containers or freight are much like water, and you know this, it's going to take the path of least resistance. So if you can create a nice flow, which is what we do, right? Same day, next day. It always amazed me when Amazon said they're going to have 2-day delivery or next day delivery and then same day delivery up. At Whimsy, we've been doing it since 1996. We deliver containers the same day that they arrive. We deliver them the next day. We always used to say it's funny because as the railroad kept reducing the amount of time your container could dwell at the rail yard, we say it's going to be like an airport, right? You have to be there when your container arrives. Sit by the curb, wait for it, get your container, and then leave, beat it. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, obviously, because there's just not enough drivers for the amount of containers flowing in currently. But so that was a big obstacle many times. That just shows that as a leader, right, I didn't, third time was a charm.
In terms of getting the technology implemented in a way that people would use it. I mean, that's an interesting point that I don't think some of us leaders do a good enough job of, is understanding the importance of the implementation and the buy-in and needing to have champions who support the idea of
100%.
moving on to this new technology. Because you and I, or you as the CEO, can go see the latest, you can go meet with Trinium and be like, man, this would make my life so much easier. Because you see the problems from 30,000 feet, a lot of cases. You see, like, all the errors that can happen and mistakes and lost paperwork and this and that. The people on the floor doing the actual work, they're just like used to what they're used to. I mean, they're used to whatever it is, 40 keystrokes they have to do, or, they put this paper in that pile and this paper in this pile. And they don't care necessarily that you think it's going to be easier. They know what they know. And often there's a disconnect between the person up top who sees how the problem can be solved and the people at the bottom who are actually doing the work. And it's just important for there to be some type of connection there made, or you will have one or two failed attempts. I'm curious, like, as you think about how you made it work the third time, what was different? I mean, you mentioned hiring and having to basically rehire the whole team. I mean, is that kind of the central factor, or were there other things that maybe can be learning points for others who will go through something similar?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine like scale like C.H. Robinson? Yeah, going through the same legacy things. I mean, that people don't talk about it, but it's monumental, and it's exactly like you say. You need the people to buy in. Now everybody, I went from average age was 48 and up. So now my average age is 36 and below. I'm an old fart. And it's amazing because I was like, nobody's really going to understand how all the nuances of the intermodal world, because, it's just as bizarre as the world that we live in most of the time. The do's, the don'ts, the you shouldn't have, and then when you put a process in, you put a 1,000,010 processes in, and there's going to be 1,011,000 that you didn't think of, right? I mean, I still love it though.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said kind of described what I believe is why the companies, the VC-led digital freight companies, partially why they were not successful that first go round from 2015 to 2020, because they thought they could just come in and automate all the problems away and everything would be okay and you wouldn't need a person to kind of navigate it. But the reality is, like, the exception is the rule. So you might solve 100 problems with automation, but you missed the 101st, you missed the 102nd, you missed the 103rd. And those are the three that are going to get back to your customer, and your customer doesn't give a crap how many things you automated. They care that this order got screwed up and they didn't know in advance because, your process wasn't clean enough.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're at the point now where the driver doesn't leave the either the receiver or the shipper without sending the BOL or the POD. So the customers are getting their BOLs, their PODs within 30 minutes of signing. So, these are the important things, like being in the business a long time. You can add all the tech you want. The other thing is tracking and tracing on time. These are the things that that people want to partner with you for, right? If you can, I can tell you where my driver is, or I can give you access to where my driver is for your particular load, and you can see that, and you get all that documentation. And we do, we do a lot of niche, also reefers, triaxles. We've been doing it for so long. We have a lot of equipment, and we have the infrastructure. A lot of times, whenever you talk about the VC, everybody wanting to get in. You gotta have an infrastructure. You gotta have processes. There's so much that can go wrong. Freight brokers, everybody fights for the owner operator, but the truth is, we've got a waiting list for owner operators because we give them the support that they didn't even know they needed. Support being, they have all of our facilities to stop at, go to the bathroom, get things fixed, wash their hands, take a break. These are the things that drivers need, not need, but
deserve.
So when you give the proper support, you're going to get a following, you know that, and that goes. You could add all the 951 million things, but then you have to train all the drivers on how to use everything, right, at the same time. And obviously, it's easy, but for some guys, it can be a little frustrating if you don't give them the proper support. They're going to want to quit. Like I always say, a lot of times in this business, it's amazing to me because everybody complains, intermodal business. One of the things shippers and receivers would always say is they don't call, they're always late, da, 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 da. And we started with pre-pulling containers so that we didn't have to sit at the rail or the depot that day and then come up with an excuse on why we were late. Get the box, clean it. That's what we do. We don't care if you're paying or not. 95% of any export we do, that one of our mechanics or an employee at Whimsy will blow it out or clean it, check for holes, all of those things, because we know dry runs are a big issue. Who wins in a dry run? Nobody. It's a loser, right? So the thing all these cheaper carriers can't do is they can't find ways to take out things that cost people money, right? Our only add value is when I can save you money.
They can't find ways to take out the things that cost people money. Will you explain that? I missed that point for my audience.
Okay. Dry runs, like you show up with a container, smells, it's dirty, it's got a hole in it, customer don't want to load it. Who are they going to blame? Immediately they're going to blame the carrier, right? If we show up with an inferior container. But if you're ordering just a general purpose container, then there shouldn't be an issue. Then you have now this point of contention where you shouldn't have brought this container. Well, the driver doesn't get to pick. He goes into a yard that's stacked full of containers, and they have to put the best one on, and then we have to work with it or get out of line, go back in, anger people, get a different one out, right? Generally, as long as it doesn't have a hole in the sides of the floor, we can clean it. That's what we do. Those are the things that I am trying to explain cost somebody money or a relationship, because you either have to split it or find a way. I always say it's not what happens, but what you do after it happens.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like that would be a challenging thing for someone to look at and say, okay, well, we're spending an extra half hour or hour of someone's time cleaning this every time. And so we have like a 1% rejection rate or even less percent rejection rate, leading to 0 or 1% of dry runs, comparing to maybe a cheaper alternative carrier who's like, I'm not going to spend the hour cleaning it. And they have a 5% dry run rate or 5% rejection rate. Like, it's hard to do the math and necessarily correlate that to savings. But like, I can generally just appreciate your thought process of, I'm going to do everything in my power to put my customer in the best position to win and like to reduce the chance of a load getting missed or a load getting a container getting rejected.
Right.
And those are the things that I actually do. I understand now with that explanation. I appreciate it. And that's a perfect example of a little thing that like a really high quality provider is going to do that, on paper, it looks like they're spending extra money, but because you don't necessarily see it in the profit of like, fewer dry runs, but your customers are happier with you because your service level is going to be higher. And at the end of the day, like that's what matters, right?
Well, you're probably pretty close on the analytics of the failures or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, what I would just like to remind you is that if the customers needs to make a sailing, today's the cutoff, right? And now they're not going to make the cutoff. Maybe the customer then cancels the order. You're not going to meet my terms of delivery. So it triggers. It's in my life. It's never one thing, right? If you don't understand cause and effect, then you're going to get clobbered. You're just going to get clobbered because you don't understand. If you fail on that, then that creates that. Now that forwarder, that book, that trucker now looks like a clown because now the shipper's freight ain't going to make it. And the same thing as As far as the condition goes, if you're going to a third-party warehouse and they're responsible for the freight to get to Australia properly, they don't want to load any kind of inferior container. And their idea of an inferior container is much different than the carrier's idea of an inferior container. So you have the customer that's buying or shipping the freight, you have the warehouse that's going to be loading the freight, and then you have the carrier that's coming to pick it up. These are the points of contention that, either make or break you with your relationships with your customers, right?
Are you looking to grow your brokerage? Are you struggling to land new customers in these challenging market conditions? Look within. So many companies that tender you freight throughout the domestic United States also have business coming out of Mexico. A year ago, I understand why you might not have seen that freight as an opportunity. But today, Cargado exists. And that means any load coming into or out of Mexico is now an opportunity for you to support. In just over a year, I've been able to see Cargado go from ideation to launch to rapid growth. It's amazing to see how many logistics companies have been able to use Cargado to expand into Mexico to grow their business. Cargado is the first platform that connects logistics companies and trucking companies who are moving freight into and out of Mexico. If you move Mexico freight or are planning to, reach out to Cargado today at cargado.com. That's CARGADO.com.
And I assume, or maybe I should just ask, but one way to navigate that challenge, and the challenge being a third party making decisions around quality that's kind of out of your control, is to limit the number of kind of inconsistent warehouses that you are going to, picking up or dropping up out of, and trying to keep as much consistency in your network as possible. So 80%, 90% of my freight I'm picking up and dropping off at the same places all the time, because you understand their rules, you understand what good looks like, versus if you're just on the spot market every day, and every day you're going to a new facility and every day you're engaging with their new rules, you don't know what they think good looks like. And I'm curious, in your world, what percent of your business are you running as consistent lanes, consistent facilities, versus playing in the spot market where there's a little more risk of kind of going into the unknown?
So all over the board, to answer that question, we've got customers that have been paying the same thing before COVID, through COVID, and after COVID. So they don't even know what when people talk about, the whole thing, they don't understand. They're like, I don't know, Whimsy provided us the same service, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they had to pay detention at the rail for congestion or whatever, these things. But as far as price goes, and to answer your question, I want to go to every facility. Yeah, we do. We have about, plenty of customers over our 29 years of existence that we've been going to for a good long time, whether it's a drop or pull or a live load. Everybody understands. I always say, know what you sign up for, right? So everybody knows what they signed up for. And those incidents, like I said, we'll move 200 containers a day, and I have to answer emails and talk to people about 2 moves that went bad. So when you talk about, right, showing up with a good container, or what the rejection figure is, I want a 0 rejection. That's my goal. And my drivers, they need to understand what our expectations are, right? And so when they do show up, and they get rejected, and then I get a picture of it, and they say, well, I want to get paid for this. I say, yeah, how can I get you paid for that? Right? Well, did you even open the container? Because there's contagion. There's times when drivers don't do their jobs properly. So that's why we set a certain standard, Andrew, and it needs to be adhered to. It needs to be better each day, right? I mean, every day I try to be 2 things: a better person and less of a hypocrite, right? And those are the 2 things I aim for every day, and they kind of go hand in hand. So, I like to offer as much transparency as possible. At the same time, I would appreciate transparency, right? So that's just the way that goes. And, like I said, I want to go to every shipper. I don't care. if they don't have a bathroom or they don't want to let the driver in the bathroom, then we're going to put it in the notes, tell the driver to stop before he goes there and go to the bathroom. I found that I can't change people, that I have to just work in the parameters of the challenges that I'm given. And so we just try to understand those, make notes, and do things, not cry over and over again about things that nobody's willing to get down and dirty and change. That's one of my biggest pet peeves are these people who go on LinkedIn and talk about the lines at Norfolk Southern, or waiting time, or all these things, and paying for lifts, and all that goes with that. And you should have known what you were signing up for, right? And I call it just part of the game. Or we call the rail the belly of the beast. You got to get into the belly of the beast to understand how it works. We have a terminal by every rail for that reason, right? We want to be able to service the rail and the customer. 97% of the carriers in the Chicagoland area, they want to get a piece. They're a piranha looking for a piece, and they'll shout out any price. But we have a nice mix for a reason, right? 50 some odd company drivers and 145 owner operators or whatever. Always had that nice mix. When you go into downturn, maybe some of the owner operators that aren't so good haven't been following the safety as good, blah blah blah. They need to be let go at
Cold.
Huh?
I was saying cold, like let go. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, you never want to do that. I mean, right? But I mean, you have to be flexible. I've learned one thing, and that is expect the unexpected. And you're still not even prepared for it.
So you're speaking my language. There's so much gold in what you just said. I don't even know where to go with it, but I'll start with, I can certainly appreciate your focus on transparency, and also the idea that you can't control how vendors, customers, warehouses are necessarily going to play. Like, they get to make the rules to their own game, and it's your job to either agree to those rules and play the game, or not. You don't have to. But choosing to just be transparent about those rules is the only way to do it. And whether it's putting a note in about there's no bathroom, so go to the bathroom ahead of time, or where we used to run into a lot was like detention things. And my philosophy was, like, yeah, I want to pay drivers detention 100 times out of 100, as long as it's deserved, as long as they were on time and they did what we agreed to. If we said, if the facility pays after 2 hours and that's what we agreed to, then pay them after 2 hours. But there were some facilities, produce locations and such, that didn't want to pay at all. And there's some facilities that we said, okay, you know what, they're not going to pay. We'll agree to pay after 3 hours. And you know what you do? You put it in the notes, you say it, you speak it to the company before you agree to the load, and they agree to it or not. And the worst case, though, was when they wouldn't listen, and then they wouldn't read the notes, and then after the fact they'd be like, why am I not getting detention after 2 hours? And it's like, well, this is what we agreed to on the load. Like, if you needed more money, you should have put it in your your line haul rate on the front end. I can't control how everyone else behaves. All I can control is how I behave within the rules of the game, and then I communicate those rules effectively to whoever I'm working with. And that's just, to me, that's freight 101. And unfortunately, it's a differentiator. It really probably shouldn't be, but I think guys like you and I wouldn't have been able to build businesses the way we did, or if there weren't so many players that didn't operate that way, to give you something to be better than.
Right.
So
And you said it right there. I don't know how many times I heard a driver tell me, "Oh, I was in line waiting at the window for 15 minutes, and then they punched my thing. It was 7:01." We have a agreement, and obviously, not if you work with a broker or somebody that you don't work with on a consistent basis. But we have an agreement, a 15-minute leeway, right? We would rather them be 15 minutes early than 15 minutes late, obviously. But what we do is educate the driver. You want to be paid. You want to do all these things. Well, guess what? Someone at that dock is waiting for you to load your container at that time that you agreed to be there. And so you need to be there before that. And I don't want to hear that you waited 15 minutes in line before they could get up to the window. If you know that, you should either tell us that you're there and you're waiting in line, and we could pull up your GPS and send the message to the customer, right? This business has always been about communication. 99.9% of anybody's problems is a poor or lack of communication. And you know what I get in my life all the time? Poor and lack of communication. And I think only because I demand better communication, and I just, you don't ever get what you want. But you take what you get.
It is the way to win, though. I mean, it's a simple concept. Can be hard to execute because people got a lot of things. The average rep is probably navigating 10 or 15 accounts, or in your case, it's 20 or 30 drivers, whatever it is. So I get how things can be lost in the shuffle in a chaotic business, but all you can do is set fair expectations and try to hold people to them. I am curious, though. You made a comment around be less hypocritical. We talk about that a little bit, and like what just your leadership style in general. I want to get into Matt the leader for a bit.
Yeah. Well, I've never asked anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. So as far as that goes, I'd probably 100 times more hands-on than your typical CEO. So what was what were we looking for here?
I was asking about your leadership style. I mean, you mentioned the be less hypocritical, and I'm just, as a guy who grew up or worked as a driver, so you've done the job, but now you became a CEO of a pretty large company. You've obviously been very successful, and I'm just curious, like how you go about leading. You mentioned transparency. You mentioned
right.
Your two theories
the
of be
man
a better
in the
person.
Mirror, like Michael Jackson said. It starts with the man in the mirror, and what I mean about that is I can't tell drivers to do the speed limit if I'm not going to do the speed limit in my car, right? If I'm going to drive reckless in my car, then I shouldn't be the CEO of a transportation company, because you should expect the same thing from yourself as you would your drivers or your dispatchers. And the dispatchers, like what we talk about, if you've got a facility where you're sending a driver in, don't not tell him because you think he's not going to want to go. Tell him everything you possibly can so he understands what he's signing up for. That way he can't go, oh, this happened or that happened, blah, blah, blah. You're like, well, I kind of filled you in on, some of the nuances of the facility. But that's what I mean. In your everyday life of being a hypocrite, you shouldn't criticize people, which I've spent my whole life, and I know it was inbred into me. You criticize people, but you're no better, right? You just need to be better. And if you're not going to fix the situation, then don't talk about the situation. Or if you're going to talk about resolution instead of just word about it, right? Successful people are successful because they solve problems, they solve issues, they solve solutions, they communicate. Otherwise, you can't.
Yeah, I mean that all resonates with me. It's funny because you remind me of a story with one of my owner operators. When I was a carrier rep. How old? I'm 35. I guess 17 years ago, for a few years, and just loved it. I worked mostly with owner operators, just because they were more fun to deal with. And there was a gentleman, Peter Achukwu, and his wife Catherine was his dispatcher. They were from Nigeria. They had emigrated to the States. They lived in Marietta, Georgia. And this guy used to run all over the Southeast for me on these Coke loads and whatever. But I used to do these company meetings at MOLO where every couple of weeks I would usually be the speaker, but I would just talk to the team about whatever was on my mind. And sometimes I had guest speakers. I brought a shipper in, and I wanted to bring an old driver in. So I brought Peter in. And we hadn't done a load together in 10 years, but we're still friends. And I just asked him to talk about, why we were successful together and like what he appreciated about our relationship. And what he said to our whole team was, he was like, the reason that I would always work with Andrew and why I appreciated our relationship more than other brokers is because no matter what, he told me the truth about a load. And he would sometimes call me and say, listen, Peter, I need you to go pick up this load at Coke in Atlanta, and I know you hate the place because this one facility was really tough, and the person who ran the facility was not necessarily nice to people. And he knew we were going in without an appointment, and he was going to be waiting for a while to get loaded. But he's like, I just loved that you didn't hide that. You didn't avoid telling me it. You didn't say that it was a first come, first serve. You told me straight up this was a work-in. We were going to be waiting for a while, and we were going to have to deal with the person that we didn't like making us wait.
That's it.
And he's like, that's why I loved our relationship, because I never had to worry about you not, you hiding something from me. And I got that from what you just said. And I can certainly relate to it. So I think that's a lesson for anybody in our business to learn, is like, there's two ways to deal with these issues. One is to kind of deal with it now. The other is to deal with it later. You deal with it now by being upfront with your driver and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. And yeah, maybe I'm paying an extra $100 or $200 to someone to deal with it. Dealing with it later is me telling the guy, it's first come, first serve, go ahead. And he gets there. He realizes there was a missed appointment. Now he's pissed at me. He's waiting. And who knows what happens from there? He threatens not to deliver unless I give him an extra $500. He never works with me again. So you either deal with it up front or you deal with it on the back end. And 99 times out of 100, dealing with it on the back end is going to be way worse than just dealing with it.
It's going to be very contentious, not good. No, your way is much, I would say 100% the way it has to be, and it's fair. I always say, they always say that, there's a driver shortage. There's always been a shortage of treating drivers properly. That if they want to reword it that way, that's the way they should word it. But drivers will go and they're happy to work at a good place as long as they're treated fair and communicated to fairly. So, those are things that we talked about this off camera. In my early years, people were like, oh, broken serpentine belt or whatever, why a driver wasn't going to show up or whatever. I would rather be transparent. Say, the driver, had a personal problem. We had to find a fill-in, whatever, just be honest about it. There's no reason to make up any lies about why you're not. I always tell employees, I don't have to hear why you're not going to be in. You're not going to be in. It's not going to help us. Whatever your excuse is, it's not going to benefit me either. I mean, if you're not here, you're not benefiting the team. That's all that matters. So.
Yeah, the other thing you said I wanted to hit on was around judgment of others or criticism of others, and it reminded me of, this is a problem I've had, and I think I could look at my tenure as CEO at Molo and see hypocritical behavior at times where I preach the importance of treating our people well and treating each other well, and then my emotional reactivity led to me blowing up at an employee because we screwed this up or that up. And it wasn't necessarily even their fault, but I was just too emotionally reactive. And so it was certainly hypocritical, but in now years of therapy, I got a good lesson. And that lesson was, our judgment of others is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And that is something that has really hit home for me. Cause whether it's a judgment that's like something significant of, someone screwed something up and you're like, this person's an idiot, or it's like little things. I mean, little micro judgments when you're just, walking your dog and someone else is walking their dog the same direction as you. And you realize that's going to make your dog, act a fool. And you're like, why is this person walking at me? It's a stupid thing to get upset about. But my point is just, I think being a little more introspective has helped me realize like, these judgments I have are not really about the other person as much as they are about maybe insecurities I have about myself, or just things I feel about myself that need work. So I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, or if you can connect to it at all or relate to it.
Well, I do. I believe everybody that I come in contact with, helps make me a better person, whether they're a better person or not. I find it sometimes the more difficult people or more difficult customers for me are the better customers for me to deal with. Only because I understand that they're, things that they go through. Like I get 900, you probably had the same thing, but you get 900 emails a day of nothing that you want. And you're lucky if you get one email that you're looking for a day, right? I mean, we always celebrate the little wins, getting a new lane, a new customer. We don't have a gong to bong, But I mean, if we did, then everybody would be running to it all the time. It's, and I remember listening to, I read a LinkedIn post of yours about COVID, and, I've been thinking about COVID, and it was a scary time here because, you guys as freight brokers, everything, you're not really right on the ground and everything. And in the beginning, everybody's, no masks aren't needed because we didn't have any masks because, China was too busy filling China's orders of masks. So I was around and everybody had, giving out bandanas, whatever, right? And then it became mandatory that you couldn't go anywhere without masks. And it was like, now that we have masks available, so you've got to buy them. So that was a multi-billion-dollar business brought up right out of COVID, right? All the PE stuff. So, as your point is, some of our capacity is spot market, right? That's just the way it is. We do spot market, and we have contracts and you're on contracts with people. But what I've really found now, the last 2 weeks, a lot of things are getting held up on the rail. No pickup numbers because of customs issues. Nobody's really talking about it right now, but it's going to be a thing where things before were clearing a lot easier, right? I mean, but now a lot of customs issues that we weren't experiencing until the last 2 weeks.
Attention freight brokers and 3PLs. Greenscreens.ai is transforming how freight professionals price and quote freight. With AI-powered pricing and real-time market intelligence, Greenscreens delivers accurate, reliable predictions to help stay competitive in a constantly shifting market. Whether managing spot rates or long-term contracts, Greenscreens empowers brokers to quote with confidence and boost profitability, removing the guesswork from freight pricing strategies. Trusted by over 220 brokerages, Greenscreens is leading the way in the future of freight pricing. And now there's Illuminate, Greenscreen's latest product designed to shine a light on deeper freight market insights. Illuminate provides unparalleled visibility into spot and contract freight trends, giving users a clearer view of pricing fluctuations and market conditions to inform smarter, more profitable decisions. Visit greenscreens.ai/thefreightpod and discover how Greenscreens and Illuminate can help win more business more profitably.
So I don't know how to segue into that, but
let's segue into that. I'm curious. I wanted to get into that, so I appreciate you bringing us there. It's always easier when the guest does the segue for me, so I don't have to get creative or be awkward. But yeah, from what I've seen online on Twitter and LinkedIn and such, it looks like we're getting to the tipping point of a massive fall off for imports and then rail activity, intermodal activity. What are you seeing, boots on the ground? Have you seen that, or do you see it coming? What has business looked like in the last kind of 3 months? Was there a big pull forward of inventory being brought in to avoid the tariff chaos, or talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's the first thing everybody was talking about when Trump was elected, right? Was, we want to pull all this forward. And I'm thinking there's not enough time. There's no way. There's not enough time. And then I reverted to his first term, and the same thing, if you remember, happened, right?
I got a short memory. Tell me.
Well, they pulled the imports forward again.
Did he threaten tariffs the first time around?
Yeah.
But he didn't follow through on it?
No, he did, and Biden left some of them in place.
Got it.
But in any event, we didn't experience a Chinese New Year. Okay, we always experience a Chinese New Year. Yeah, Chinese New Year is the 2nd through the 5th. It starts and goes 2 weeks, and it generally affects our business for about 6 weeks, right?
And what is it, a shutdown for 4 days there that leads to weeks of impact
I think
here?
It's more than 4 days. It's usually when people leave their job and go start, when they come back from holiday or whatever, they go back to another job or a different job. I don't know how it all works. But I can just tell you that it was always March and April, right? We were looking for seed loads and firework loads and all that to make up for those type of things, because that's when, we'd get the hybrid seed loads would come in, firework loads start right after the first of the year. talk about firework loads too. If this doesn't resolve out, everybody's going to be having drone fireworks this year because 100% of the fireworks come from China. So, maybe Trump will take them off the list. I don't know. But in any event, yes, I feel like they did pull it forward. I feel like there was no Chinese New Year. I don't know. I'm not going to say this. From my point of view, this is the Chinese New Year now, right? Now they've shut down. We normally experience a slowdown. We haven't. I know everybody on the ports are talking. We do a lot of crosstowns. We move East Coast rubber wheel containers to the West Coast rails and West Coast rubber wheel containers to the East Coast. So we go in and out of the Iowa Interstate, CSX ramps, the NS ramps, the CP ramps, the BN ramps, and the UP ramps, just doing crosstowns, making connections. Those had not slowed down. We're still experiencing the same volumes. We were really lean on 5 or 6 quarters to the last quarter of last year. Fourth quarter of 2024, things started looking better. This first quarter was booming. Great first quarter. Second quarter in the year was going to look great, right? So we don't know. We haven't. I feel like last time I did a podcast was with Paul, and that was just,
Paul.
Yeah, and that was whatever 30 months ago or whatever, before it dropped off the first time, right?
Oh man, are you an indicator? Are you a tipping point?
I don't know.
On your podcast? Oh God, I hope you and I don't send the imports off or drop off the freight.
So everybody, the sky is falling. I do know we haven't experienced it. It's May 1st. I spent some time in Hawaii, so it's May Day. I remember May 1st in Hawaii. When I was 12, I was wearing a tea leaf skirt and doing hula on today because it's a big thing in Hawaii, May 1st.
Oh, wow.
That's a big deal.
I didn't know that.
Learn something new every day. All my Hawaiian friends.
Aloha to our Hawaiian audience. I will after we are done recording, I will check how many listeners we have in the state of Hawaii. I can see that stuff. I can see where people listen. So hopefully we get a few after this episode when all your friends see that you're on the show.
Yeah. Well, all my friends from Kealakea or Kamaaina. Kealakea.
I'm not going to try to repeat those words, but or locations. I'm curious. How does when your team boots on the ground or your drivers, I'm sure they pay attention to what's going on in the media, and they see what looks like the sky potentially falling in the near term. How do you kind of navigate that as a business? As a leader and as the CEO, how do you think about communication and what kind of operational changes you might make if there is a big fall off coming? How do you kind of navigate it?
Okay. Well, we were constantly hiring new drivers since January 1st. We were putting on maybe 2 drivers a week.
Okay.
It was maybe 3 weeks ago. I asked Diana to pause any even new hires. Even though we have a list for company drivers and owner operators, just asked her to pause because that's the best way to piss off your current drivers. They keep hiring drivers in a downturn, right? So we blasted out an email to all the drivers to not make any unnecessary purchases, advise them to pay attention to the news. Again, you can't just be transparent with your customers. You have to be transparent with everybody in the industry.
100%.
Sometimes when you're over transparent, then, people obviously then worry more than they should, right? Stress comes from the unknown. And then when people don't know, then they're stressed out. I always like take it day to day, right? Because from being in business that It could be like, you remember the Gilligan's Island? You go on a 2-hour tour and you could end up on an island, right? You've never heard of
That's
Gilligan's
before.
Island?
I've heard of Gilligan's Island, and I've certainly seen an episode or two, but I was
Okay.
probably 10 years old, so I can't. The reference is hard for me to relate too
Okay.
well, but I do understand what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Well, you don't know what you're in for, right? The day could start out and then, it could just turn into an avalanche of shit. Um, or you could have a good day and everything goes well and everybody's happy and upbeat like every day here at Whimsy.
Fair.
Yeah.
So your point is, lean into communication
100%, 110%.
to everyone,
Yeah.
and
Transparency.
be cognizant of the fact that, uncertainty does create fear. Because there were a couple instances where I remember leaning extra hard into communication, and one of them was at the beginning of COVID, when I was calling it. I remember I still have former employees that give me shit because I was calling it COVID. We just didn't know anything about it. But I do remember one of the things I said was, listen, let's just focus on what we can control, which is our service and execution for our customers. This feels like something that no one will ever forget. So let's make sure that they don't forget the way we took care of them. Focus on what you can. And then the second thing was when we were selling the company, and 6 months in advance, we knew we were doing a deal, but I thought we were actually going to do a private equity deal. I think I remember telling my team, I was like, we're going to go raise a bunch of money because we think it's the right time. And there's like a 90% chance we'll do it through private equity, but like 10% chance it's a strategic partner. But we were like, let's communicate as proactively as possible with people so they know. And for that 6 months, I kept updating people, even to the point of letting them know we were being acquired before it was done with a publicly traded company. We just had to be careful about what we said. But my thought there was kind of to your point. It's like, okay, me telling them is going to create some fear. And maybe they're going to be people who proactively quit or take another job because they're worried about what will happen. But I'd much prefer I'm the one telling them all along the way versus the day it happens, there's a news article saying that Molo's been acquired and they haven't heard a word from me. I just feel like I'd rather own that narrative and be the one communicating so they know exactly what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking it, and why we're making the decisions we are. Because that's, at the end of the day, I think it's so much easier. Something I've learned is it's so much easier for us to have compassion for others than it is for ourselves. And that's just a general point, but specifically to this, I bring it up because like when we communicate effectively, people realize like we're human, and they realize like, listen, you might be the CEO, but you're just like a lot of other people on the team, showing up every day, trying to do the best you can with what you got. And yeah, you've got, a bigger weight on your shoulders because you're making decisions on behalf of 200 drivers and all your employees. But when you're communicating proactively and transparently, you're proving that like you're just doing what you can with what you got. You're sharing, you're making decisions based on the information you have, and doing it with everyone's best interests in mind. And that's our job as the CEO, right?
Yeah, you would hope so, right? And not always the case. You're a diamond in the rough, Andrew. Not other people are more deceitful. Then those things need to be kept under, But you did the right thing. You asked me. You asked me 100% all the time that if you can be transparent, communicate things before it gets out. Like I always said, we're going to be late. First calls to the customer, second calls to the facility, right? You let the customer know. You don't want the customer to be the last one to know anything about their load. You're right. You want them to be the first person that knows everything about their load. And that's how you retain supporters.
Yeah, and just make sure that you have solutions in mind as you go to that customer with the information. So, the worst thing you can do is just let them know, hey, this thing's going to be late, with no no backup plan, no this is why, or not even the why necessarily as much as like this is what we're going to do about it. Whether it's this driver fell off, I got a new guy who's going to grab it tomorrow, and he'll be there at 8 a.m. or whatever. So.
Typical, you see all these guys posted everything on LinkedIn, what they can do, heavy haul, overweight loads, all these things. We've been doing those for years. We do deliveries to Navy Pier. We do delivery. We just did some deliveries to the Art Institute. So when we do these deliveries, we generally send somebody in to survey, right? What's the best time? What direction's the driver coming in? We plot out all these things because in this business, it's getting different now. It was a lot worse before, but everybody's always set up to fail. And then they fail and everybody points at the driver. Oh, bad driver. And then people want to quit their jobs. And so when you set people up to be successful and they're actually successful, then they want to stay at their job because they feel it's important that they're constantly if you're the CEO, you want to see people feeling like they're winning, whether they're winning for you or the company. It builds confidence in their life. Like I always tell everybody, I'm like, treat customers, your supporters, how you want to be treated. Right? It's really that simple. And you'll get better results, right? You want to be told what's going on with whatever. First, you don't want to be the last person to know. You want to be treated fairly. You want to pay a fair price. If you can pay more, doesn't mean you want to pay more, right? I will pay more for better service, so I would expect that I would get more for my better service. But I always feel like we're constantly giving better service than I receive in the real world. And I have to answer for the times that we don't. And it's disappointing. You feel it. You're like, oh, I always say every time the team fails, I've failed as a leader. I failed to give the proper support. I've failed to give the proper SOP, whatever the case may be. So I share that failure with my team, right?
You mentioned that you guys get into kind of the niches, and earlier you mentioned doing deliveries to Navy Pier, the Art Institute, and that's not your typical freight. You also earlier in the show you mentioned you have a knack for making lemonade out of lemons, and it sounds like a lot of your business has been focused on kind of building riches and niches, whether it's hazardous or overweight, whatever it may be. I'm curious, one, why did you choose to chart that path for your business? And two, what kind of challenges has that created for building the right kind of driver workforce to support that challenging type of freight?
Yeah. Well, again, we're not biased about any freight, right? we really make our bread and butter on volume.
Okay.
People will call us today and go, I got 20 containers this last free day today. They need to deliver it tomorrow. If the shipper can take them, we're going to deliver them, right? That's where we're the most valuable. But at the same time, we do oversized tankers, hazmat, all the things that you talk about. We move tons of reefers, over 100 reefers, probably 150, 200 reefers a week. So those are things that you need support for. You need good drivers for, if it's pharmaceutical or mayonnaise or whatever it is. Those are the things that you have to be capable of doing. And we can do high volume. We have a lot of customers that they have a high volume product, and they don't want it pulled from the rail until it's coming to their door, right? And so they could have 50 containers that have to go, over 2 days. Well, not a lot of carriers are going to be able to move 50 containers over 2 days, right?
How is your business even situated in a way where you can support such a massive influx overnight? I mean, you're not like brokering that, right? You're using all your own owner ops and company drivers.
We never got into brokering because I didn't want to compete with my supporters. Right?
Got it.
Yeah. I see all these, carriers that have their brokerages and all these things. And I felt like our position in this industry was to support however our customers want it, right? They don't want us to compete against them. They want us to support them. So that's kind of what we've always tried to do, is just be, the operational end for them, the actual nuts and bolts and the execution, right? the hardest part of anything is just executing. I always, when people ask, well, how'd you get in your business? Well, you have to take the initiative, right? And then you have to have follow through. Those are the two key ingredients: is a little initiative and then tons of follow through. Because everybody's going to tell you you're an idiot, this ain't right, it won't work, blah, blah, blah. They give you 100 million reasons why you're going to fail. And you don't even know, you're oblivious to it because you're like, I'll never fail. I'm right, right? I mean, that's the way you're feeling. So I always felt like if you're not with me, you're against me, right? And so, you're either on my team and we're going to crush it, or I don't know, you're just somebody I used to know. Because I have plenty of those people as well, right? People that knew me in the early days, they probably wouldn't say the nicest things about me, but fact of the matter is, 29 years in the Chicago intermodal market, you don't think I've seen some stuff? So I've got great experience and knowledge and wisdom, and every day it becomes better because I'm still willing to learn. I'm still learning. I learned from my younger team, patience and understanding, empathy, but at the same time, they're excited about all the things that we're doing, like initiatives that we have. We have our own lifts, right? We use AI for order entry, AI for our cameras at our facilities. We use AI in the truck. We got AI cameras in the truck. So I actually have employees that'll sit there and coach the drivers if they see them speeding in real time.
Oh, wow.
We're doing all those things in real time because I learned when I was 16, Andrew, and I had to go to court for a speeding ticket. And the judge told me that ignorance was not a defense in his court. And that means you can't say, I don't know. You have to know. It's your job to know. So yeah, I mean, people ask if I would retire or sell. I don't know. How's it feel when you sell something like that? How's it feel for you?
At MOLO, we built a great company, and I'm proud of the work we did. We knew when to ask for help, and sometimes that meant going outside of our own company. I'm proud we built an ecosystem of trusted partners like Metaphora. When we needed differentiated industry expertise in business consulting or technology services, we looked to Peter, Ryan, and the team at Metaphora. They've consistently delivered value in the transportation and logistics space for over a decade for mid-market and enterprise brokers, for shippers, carriers, private equity, and freight tech companies. At MOLO, we use Metaphora to solve problems we simply couldn't on our own. Metaphora is the only partner you should trust to help you win, whether that's doing ops and tech diligence, growing revenue, optimizing spend, or selecting and building software. Go check them out at metaphora.net. That's METAFORA.net.
Not good. I mean, I think everybody's different. There are parts of it that felt really good. The financial windfall was the first time I experienced something like that. I was happy with that, but I need to be building and
So
I
you
missed
missed your
that
team.
a lot. But that was the plan, though, wasn't to leave. So, I think, that happened, and, it wasn't by choice. But I also think, ignorance isn't an excuse, as you said. So, there are probably some things I could have done contractually on the front end of that deal that would have protected me better. And then there are some things I could have done in the business after the acquisition that probably would have protected me better if I had just been better, if I had handled things better, dealt with issues better. I was frustrated by things that I disagreed with, and I didn't do a good job of navigating that in a way that made them want to keep me much longer, which is why they didn't. So, I think I've told people I've been out for 2 years and almost 2 months now, and the first year was a lot of anger and resentment and frustration, and I'm glad that has dissipated and that's gone. Now, I've got this show, which has been a lot of fun, but it doesn't really fill my cup enough. I've thought about pushing that into, building a media type business, something to give our industry more interesting insights from people like yourself. I've got the network to keep bringing guys like yourself on the show, and there's maybe other ways to leverage all your insights into different ways for people to digest it. Not everyone wants to sit and listen for an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes of guys like you and I talking. But at the end of the day, what I'm realizing is I miss the grind. I miss the stress. I mean, I miss feeling like your back's against the wall. I miss feeling accountable to 500 employees that we need to make something happen in the next few months and grow, or else we're not going to be able to keep all these employees or hire more of them. I miss that stuff a lot. And I'm young, so I've still got the energy. And I'm playing a lot of pickleball, if I'm being honest. First, it was a lot of golf. I've transitioned to a lot of pickleball because Chicago golf weather is not, year round. But I need more to do. And I'm sure there are people that will listen to this and say, man, touch some freaking grass. Like, I would pay to be in your position of not necessarily working. And yeah, it was great for a while, but I miss it. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know how you would spend your time if you sold, but probably some golf, I would assume. But
I'd golf myself to death.
Yeah.
No, so people always ask that. I never thought about it. I always thought I'd just be that crazy old guy to push the broom in the shop, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's the other guy. Don't talk to him. He's angry about something."
He owns the place, but leave him alone. If you talk to him, he might make a decision at this point. He's 85.
Yeah, so I don't know. That actually would probably scare me. And after talking to you, I'm even more frightened now.
I mean, does it fill your cup every day to show up to work?
It does. Gives me my purpose.
Talk to me about that. What about it? What about it fills you up? What about it gives you purpose?
Just seeing everyone, interacting with everyone, coaching. I do a lot of coaching now. I feel that's rewarding. I never had a mentor. I always had people I looked up to, but I never had a mentor. So I would like to mentor some young people, and that's what I'm doing here, and that's important. I don't know how that is for you. I get asked to be on boards and stuff and all the time, and I'm like, I don't want to sound, I'm all whimsy, right? If I'm going to spend time, I want to spend time with a driver, dispatcher. I go out with guys and play golf on the weekends. I'm all in on my business and my people. So when we have meetings, it's great to see, the drivers. It's disgusting. I got like 40 care packages in the other room for drivers for Driver Appreciation Week, and they just never got here up here in Mount Prospect, and we didn't obviously do a good job of getting them delivered to them. But at the same time, I want to celebrate drivers every day, not just 1 week, because I was a driver. I am a driver. A lot of people don't understand. It's like anything else you do in life. If you're sacrificing time away, and you're at Menlo, well, that's your work family, right? So you have a work family, and then you have a normal family, and then that would be like losing part of my family. So.
Yeah. I mean, I resonate with everything you said, because I think, ironically, there's 2 things I miss probably the most. One of which was the little interactions with people every day. Like, they didn't have to be this grandiose, let's sit down for an hour and let me teach you how to be great. Like, none of that nonsense, but just like running into people as they're doing their job and just giving them a little bit of support and seeing that they appreciate that, letting them know that that, Smithfield or Kroger or Aldi really appreciates them. Like, when I would get notes from those customers saying, hey, Taylor Krug is a stud, he's killing it on my business. And I could go tell Krug, hey, Krug Missile, you're crushing it. I just heard from Smithfield, they love you. And like, the smile you get from that, like, those are the things that I missed. Those are the things that fill my cup. Being able to create, like, I always thought we didn't, like, people would be like, you created so much opportunity for us. It's like, dude, we opened the door and you had to run through it. And like, you did all the work. You deserve all the credit. I miss that. Like, I miss that a lot. The other thing I miss is selling and being in front of customers and feeling like, I think that a CEO who hasn't sold is never going to be as good as a CEO who hasn't sold for their supper. Because you have to know how hard it is to actually put the food on the table. I don't believe in anyone who's going to set expectations for people if they haven't done that job. And to have a CEO who comes from like a finance background and they're like, we need to hit these numbers. We need to grow by 30% this year. It's like, bro, you've never sent an email 40 times in 2 years to someone and not gotten a single response until the 41st. You've never called someone 15 times over the course of 6 months and been hung up on 14 of them before they finally gave you 5 minutes of their time. So don't talk to me about 30% growth until you've sat in that seat and done that. And that's just my take. But I missed that. That is what got there. Like you mentioned, you get 100 emails that you don't want. You get, maybe you get one email you want. There was nothing I loved more than seeing that email come in as a response from a potential customer who I'd reached out to, and like that got me more excited than anything. And I missed that a lot.
Right. You supporters, customers, when they give you the gratitude, you have to share it with everybody because everybody's sharing the shit, right? You're like, oh man, we eat shit every day, all day long. So to get back to that though, I always say I'm a whale hunter, right? I go out, kill the whale, and then everybody's got to dice that thing up. So we're, probably not the best thing to say for Peter. And I'm not killing any, it's a hypothetical whale I'm killing. Or slay a dragon. I have a couple customers that I always tell them, I go, I don't care how big and nasty and how much fire he shoots. I'll slay a dragon for you. It doesn't matter. And actions speak louder than words. A lot of my young Z's, they don't know isms. So I make them tell me isms all the time, and I give them isms that they've never heard because that's just, it creates a smile. Those are the kind of things that make it all worth it, right? You have everybody acts like the business is so bad and it rags you out, and it only rags you out as if you're not properly preparing and constantly adjusting, doing the necessary things to keep the pain away or keep the pain at minimum. So, if you're not doing the proper things, like everybody's asking me, what do you do about the tariffs and this and that? And they're all, you don't know what happens until it happens, right? If I'm correct, and we're going through the Chinese New Year, we're going to have a part of May and part of June that's going to be slow, right? How long it takes, I don't know. I never thought it was about tariffs. Everybody thinks it's about tariffs. It was really about China wanting to get the yuan, as be the dollar traded across the world, right? That's what we're fighting for now. It ain't nothing about it. They've been robbing us of our P's, everything for years, and everybody went along with it, and I don't want to say nothing, but it seemed like the other side was in with them, whatever side that is. But the last thing we want,
dangerous waters you're chartering.
I just want freedom and liberty, like I was told, and this country's given me all of that, and I'm very appreciative for the state of Illinois and all this country and everybody that's in it. So it's my duty to defend this country for no other reason. It's for the fruits that has brought my family and all my many families connected to me. Yeah. I think the world's way too more entitled, and it should be a lot more appreciative of the little things that you do have, right? Start appreciating the little things, and then, you can graduate to appreciating the better things, bigger things in life.
Yeah, I mean that comment and the one you made before about, running a business and how, essentially what you're insinuating is perspective is everything. And
perspective is reality.
Perspective is reality. Yeah. Perception is reality. But perspective, like, you talk about getting so stressed out. And when I think about my tenure as a CEO, it's like, there are times where I was very happy and like my cup was filled every day with the little things, like I said. But there were also times where I was miserable and I was angry and stressed and pointing fingers, and the sky was falling. And that was just me being, emotionally immature. Um, and frankly, like I just when I look back at it, it's like it's all in our control to make the decision of how we perceive the world and how we perceive our situation. You and I were both and are incredibly fortunate to have the positions we've had. You have, I had, with an incredible workforce of people who show up and bust their butt every day to make our businesses great. And yeah, if you just focus on the 5 emails you got with issues and you let those issues cloud, how you see the world, you're going to be angry. And I just started reading this book. It's in my hand now because I wanted to read this quote, Emotional Intelligence. And it's like the first kind of quote in the book from Aristotle. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not easy. And it just shows the power of managing your emotions in a way that allows you to be very in control. And anger is not a bad emotion. It's a natural emotion that we all feel. But how you navigate anger, how you navigate stress, that's what matters. And to be, an explosive, angry person who comes down on their team all the time because little issues left and right, that's who I was at times. That's a bad leader. But to be someone who allows themselves to feel anger and then navigate it in an emotionally mature way where they don't just, spout off and realize like, okay, these issues happen. Well, let's take a breath. Let's figure out what the solution is, like you pointed to earlier. Successful people are people who focus on solutions, who create solutions, not people who just, get stressed out and blow up and create more problems for themselves, whether it's resentful employees who don't want to help them, or customers who see the dark side of them that they don't, want to do business with, whatever it is. Just it's I these conversations, especially with strong leaders who really run successful businesses, I always point me back to realizing like we are always in control of our perspective if we have the fortitude to be, and doing so in a mature way is the difference between being a good business leader and being a bad one.
Yeah, well, that's something they don't teach in school. So I don't know if you're a bad leader, if you're just first time leader, okay? Because I felt the same way. I was the same way. The day-to-day grind, you want to be a great person, you want to be a good person, you want to do all these things, but you let all of this build up on you and then you react like you said. I would like to see them teach 3 things in school: emotional intelligence, common sense, and self-awareness. You teach every child that, then we're gonna have a world that's crushing it, right? I mean, those are the most important, I feel, and you can then decipher all the things that come at you on a daily basis. So I wouldn't say you're a bad leader, because that would make me a bad leader, because I behave the same way, very reactionary, and that's because we weren't taught emotional intelligence. You have to either learn it or don't, right? You learn it from interaction in the world.
And self-awareness. You learn it through self-awareness. You have to be willing to look in the mirror. But I'm just saying, the only reason I'm able to say the things I am is because I was willing to look in the mirror. I could have ignored it all and been like, screw you, I'm a great leader. I built one of the fastest growing companies in the world. I could say that. I could say I, me, I did this. Look at the numbers. You're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah.
But it's just not true. And sometimes I think we built the business in spite of me. and there's parts of that probably are true, but I think it starts with you can't get to the emotional intelligence if you don't, as you said, go to the self-awareness first. You have to be willing to look in the mirror.
Yeah. It's enlightening when you do. Like I said, I feel happier than I ever have in my life when you can be transparent, say all the things that you want to say, obviously within good taste or whatever the case may be. But it's very liberating for me now. Like I get frustrated when people can't tell me how they really feel. That's just that's very depressing for me. If you can't tell me an honest feeling, I'm a grown man. Honest feeling, when I finally meet people, they're like, oh, when I first met you, I didn't like you, and it turns out you're a nice guy. Well, I was always a nice guy, right? I mean, obviously my first impression wasn't good, right? Then I had other people like, oh, you scare me. I'm like, oh, I'm like 5'10". I'm not even that, tall. Why am I scaring you? And I guess, I must
The
have
mean
like,
mug.
yeah, or I have this like Darth Vader aura when I walk into a room. No. So, but no, I'm just like you, right? I love pickleball. I love playing golf. These are things that I enjoy. I love freight. I love being in the business. Do I get my ass handed to me? Yeah. I go home all the time. Wow, that was, but then we make up an ism or we make up a saying or we go, hey, remember that time when this happened? Or, that's part of life. Just living over here, I hope to someday be like Han Solo, maybe I'm moving freighters from Mars to here or something. I don't know.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. Well, listen, this has been awesome. I don't know if I've got anything left for you. Anything else you want to touch on before we go? Other than you and I need to commit to a round of golf in the near term?
Yeah, that'd be great. Do you have a handicap?
It's not good, but I'm a 16-9 right now. I did just make the playoffs of my member guest in Cabo with my partner. He carried us, but we made the playoffs. It was fun. Alternate shot shootout. We came in 5th place out of like, I don't know, 70. There were 11 flights of 6 teams, so 66 teams. Not bad.
Would you say you learn a lot from playing golf with somebody?
I think you can learn a lot about a person from playing golf with someone. And for a long time, I was someone that you learned I was a very angry person for a while. To be a bad golfer and an angry golfer who like breaks their clubs is just stupid. And I say that as someone who is looking in the mirror and was that person. I've developed a way more carefree approach to it. Because it's just, it's a really hard game. And, it's not something you just get good at by playing all the time, which is another thing. I think some people maybe can get better. I mean, you can improve incrementally by playing a lot, but as someone who, had a bunch of free time and played a ton, my handicap dropped from like a 21 to, 16, 17, but I still, suck in my mind. And, you need to go get help. You need lessons. And like, there's a lot of things about my game that need to improve. That's why I'm playing a lot more pickleball, because pickleball, I just started playing and I've gotten really good just by playing a lot. And it's just easy.
So you got good eye-to-hand coordination then.
Yeah, I got good hand-eye.
So when I was a kid, I used to play handball with my dad all the time at the Y on Northwest Highway. And, that's just that little hard ball. You ever play handball? Mm-hmm. So I played handball.
I've never played handball.
Yeah. And then racquetball and then now, pickleball. So, you learn, I always like to go out and golf with somebody because you really, you get a good feeling for that person, right? How their etiquette, whatever. For me, when we talked about that, how being a better person, driving home, I let everybody in front of me. Right. I go into a building, I open the door for people. I'm going out of my way, but naturally just to be that way. Right. You have to set an example all the time. You can cry about this person and that person, but if you're not constantly working on yourself to be better, you're not going to get better. So, I like to spend a little time every day trying to focus on how I can be less of a hypocrite, better leader, and being a better leader just goes with it. You said at the beginning, support, right? Encouragement. Those go a long way. And then I don't do it enough is show your gratitude. Hey, I find now nobody gave a shit, right? When I was younger and I was busted into the business, somebody said, "Hey, you're doing a great job. You keep it up." They're all like, "You're so stupid. The trucking business is terrible." Blah blah blah. And now I get yelled at if I'm not giving out enough accolades. So that's another thing, right? I have to constantly go, "Hey, thanks. I appreciate everything." Business, it may or may not drop off. Like I said, I'm anticipating May, June, Chinese New Year. Otherwise, there's not going to be a lot of stuff for the kids to go back to school, or it's all going to be from Indonesia or Bangladesh or whatever, and that's scary, right? The world, and I don't things that are going on right now with Pakistan and India going, having a border dispute or whatever they're doing over there.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. What's going on with the world. We need more people to have less hate in their heart.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day. But I'm with you. It'd be great if we could figure that out. Listen, this has been awesome. I really have enjoyed having you on. I usually ask people at the end for some advice they'd give, but you just gave it in the last 5 minutes, and it was really good, sound advice for how to just be a better person, not just better leader.
Yeah.
So
don't eat yellow snow.
Don't eat yellow snow. We'll end with that. Don't eat yellow snow. Listen, thank you so much to our audience. This was a great episode. I'm sure you all know that if you've gotten to this point. And if you want to learn more about Whimsy, reach out to Matt O'Meara on LinkedIn or find him online.
Whimsyintermodal.com.
Whimsyintermodal.com for all your Midwest intermodal needs.
All
Thanks,
right.
Matt.
Thank you, Andy.
Great talking to you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one. See you guys.